Today on the Daniel Baldwin Show, the NBA, don't bet on it, and more coming at you right now. Good morning and welcome to the Daniel Baldwin Show. Let me get right to it. Lots of stuff going on. I'm going to go to viewer mail first. This is Hank Hernandez of San Fernando, California says, "Hey DB, what the heck is going on and what's going to end this shutdown in Washington?" You know, Hank, I got to tell you, as I predicted, and I said weeks ago, you know, I smelt something was coming. And then when the shutdown actually started, I was even kind of on this as the time was coming for there to be either a temporary stay voted on or some kind of resolution. That we knew that something was going to happen. We were potentially going to shut down. And I said, they're going to let it shut down. They're going to let it shut down. And you know, as he has done in many other ways, you know, changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, there was a strategy involved in that. He wanted to change it to that because Biden had ordered that there would be no drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. He wasn't savvy enough to write the longitudinal and latitudinal coordinates of the Gulf. He named it in the documents that it was the Gulf of Mexico. Well, now it's called the Gulf of America, so there's nothing that stops us or Trump and the current administration from drilling in the Gulf of America. So again, as many people thought it was his ego and he wanted it named after. No, it wasn't. It was a play. Every decision that these people make, both sides, has ramifications, and you know, it's the Houdini thing. They're shaking a light over here if you look at while they're doing whatever they're doing over here. So let me tell you that this is a power play. The Democrats have turned around and said, many times this has happened before. It happened with Obama. I believe we shut down for 17 days, and he wanted Obamacare put through. And so he sat there with the Democrats and they said, no, you're going to vote Obamacare through, or we're going to hold this up and stay in shutdown. So who does it hurt most? It hurts the people that aren't getting paid, and it hurts their families. The Democrats obviously want back some of the things that have been taken from them. And so they're playing hardball, and they're saying, you know, no, either you give us Medicare and Medicaid and these aid packages for undocumented migrants and illegal aliens and so on and so forth, people that aren't supposed to be here. And of course, Trump was elected on a lot of his policies to do with immigration and the border. So he's not giving in on that anytime soon. And when I look at what's going on with our veterans and with our own people, I wonder, why does anyone really that worried? Not that we don't want to be a caring, giving arm. I'm all for that. I get a lot of emails from people saying, you know, man, what happened to you? And your brother's this, and you used to be a Democrat. And that's true, I was. But I didn't see it was working well, and I continue to see problems where our giving, loving arm is too global and too much, while we're not taking care of what's going on at home. And so, and one of them that I'm pretty well documented myself in quoting and fighting for is our veterans. You know, I just believe, you know, what a shitty deal they have sometimes coming home, man. You know, just terrible. They should be able to, for what they've given up, particularly people that have, you know, given up or damaged in some way, you know. I mean, we should be giving them whatever they want. But certainly we should be supporting the wives, the husbands, and the children of these people that have given so much for our country. I'll never understand it. So anyway, that's one point. But here's the more important thing that I think people are missing, and I'm going to lay it out really straight this time. So the Republicans, I'm not sure they want it settled right now. I don't think that they're going to give this up. They're not going to allow the Democrats to bully them. And I think in some ways they may be using this as an excuse. So I went out and I reached out on social media, and I said about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I said, look, the Republicans don't want you to give in right now. Let it go, and suddenly you'll see the president will be able to use his emergency powers. Remember I said this, now it's the second time I'm going to say this, and I'm going to give myself up and pre-warn you. If the Democrats don't allow some type of temporary stay and they continue to hold tight, it's exactly what I believe the White House wants. Because if the president has to declare it, and he has it within his powers to declare and supersede any congressional vote, he will take control of the voting. The White House and the current administration will say, the Congress is not working, we're not able to get together on these issues. There's a lot of stuff. And you know, part of that is true. I mean, sometimes we drag on and drag on and drag on. Silly things, you know, forcing people to get a shot or they can't work or they'll be fired. I mean, talk about no kings. Talk about, you know, stuff that has gone on the other side of the aisle that I listened to them having full-on rallies and, you know, you made people shoot something into their veins. You made them take on an untested, exploratory, you know, I mean, horrible. I mean, we don't even know what that's going to do to children that are born by women who had those shots, what other diseases will rear their heads, what was really in. Some of them had terrible high levels of metals and blah. I never got that shot. There wasn't a chance I was getting it. If SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, told me I couldn't work, I wouldn't have worked. That would have been it. There was no way I was getting that shot. So my prediction again is this may be exactly what the White House wants. They want them to hold up and stay steadfast to this list of demands that have to be added on to get something pushed through to end this terrible shutdown right now. And guess what? Neither side is going to jump on making something happen. The White House will declare it an emergency, and the White House will then vote for everything that they want. There'll be no congressional vote. Watch. Watch. And there's part of that then makes me think, well, if we elect a certain person, next election the Democrats win. Election after that the Republicans win. If the team that you bring in speaks for the majority of the people, and these are close elections coming down to, you know, paper thin voting percentages in 6 or 7 states every year now, every 4 years when the elections come. So, you know, if the Republicans win, if J.D. Vance is president of the United States in 3 years, then they'll make more of those decisions. Congress will be stripped. There'll be an advisory board. You know, watch it, man. It could happen. It could definitely happen. And you know, a lot more stuff would get done, I think, than all this. Because no matter what the Republicans want right now, as we look at Trump's administration, the Democrats shoot it down. They don't. If they had a cure for cancer that, as was documented for the last 10 years, doesn't have any side effect, they would find a reason not to approve it. It doesn't matter, and vice versa. The Republicans couldn't stand Biden, and he was, you know, suspected by many people as being not well. And they hid that and they lied. I mean, so the perception on both sides by everybody is, you know, it's just we're at war with everything they say. Every comment that comes out, it's like watching and reading Keith Olbermann. You know, and I used to love to watch his sports stuff. I was a big fan of Keith's. You know, we're about the same age, within probably a year of each other. And as somebody who, you know, was on Fox, Best Damn Sports Show, period, and has done stuff for ESPN and is a sports enthusiast, I really like listening to his kind of cutting edge style. Now I watch him, he comes up on my social media, and it's nasty, verbal, personal attacks at people's weight, their intellectual capacity, their, you know, whatever, you know, you moron, effing this, swear words and, you know, stuff, which slip out every once in a while, I guess, but do they have to be in writing every other tweet? Is that what it comes down to? And it's just bashing, ugly, disgusting, you know. What happened to Keith? You know, what happened to Keith? So, Hank, long viewer mail. Sorry if I went on too much, but I want you to know, yeah, I think the Republicans are happy. I think so. I think you're going to find that the president will step in and order an emergency act, and it will take some powers away from Congress. I think that's coming if this continues. So the NBA is on fire right now. I mean, the potential damage that I see, and for those people who aren't gambling savvy, let me explain to you what happened. So what happened? Prosecutors alleged that players and other other used insider information about injuries and other private details to place bets, particularly on player under props. Now, let me explain what that means. So, the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics are playing, right? And they're playing at New York. There's all kinds of statistical information of past performances with the Knicks against the Celtics. What happens when the Knicks are at home? And so the computer will spit out pretty accurate, within a few points, give or take either side. That's why you're gambling on it. Okay. So you can bet what's called an under, which means on average on the road in New York, the Boston Celtics score 100 points. The Knicks win and score 102. So they say 202 points is the under-over. Are they going to score more than 202 points combined? So take the two scores and combine them. You can actually bet on how much a player is going to score. You can bet on how many three-pointers. You can bet on all kinds of different individual statistics too. So what they're saying occurred was, and remember, you don't have to intentionally miss shots, although I believe we're going to find out that happened. So it's the fourth quarter with a few minutes left, and it's 90-90, and they bet under. You told people bet under the 202 points combined. It's at 180 right now. And suddenly a guy on the other team, you can't control what's happening with a guy on the other team. He shoots 3 threes in a row and makes all 3 and scores 9 points. They have 99. You come down the court and you miss it a little to the right. You throw a bad pass out of bounds. You do whatever you do. So you intentionally play poorly in order to affect the score so that you don't want to put points in because you told people to bet under, and you probably bet under 202. Okay. There's other ways of doing that. So if you're LeBron James, or in this case, there's a player that he took himself, he at the last minute said, my knee's bad. I can't play, it's sore, I don't know what's going on. And the medics are looking at it and they're like, we'll probably need to MRI, let's hold him out. And this guy scores 30 points a game on average. You just took 30 points off your score. Or if he gets out there and then after halftime he says, I feel sore. And the game now, they're going to put a substitute in that's not as good as him. That's why he's starting. And again, you're going to make sure there's not another guy that's going to take his place that's going to score 20 points in the second half or some nonsense that it needs. So he ensures by faking his injury, by taking himself out of the lineup, that the score stays under. It's much easier to bet on an under and fix the game than it is to try to bet over. If you bet over, that means you have to score. So you'd have to run up and down this court as hard as you can, and you can't guarantee that that's going to happen, but an under is pretty easy to make happen. The thing about making an under bet happen is you want to not make it too obvious. You want to not, you gotta play shit. People are watching. People are watching. I'm going to tell you why when I say people are watching. Over and under bets, also known as totals, are a wager on whether a combined final score of both teams in a game will be higher or lower than a number set by the sportsbook. So, like I told you, there's hotels in Las Vegas that have what's called the sportsbook, where you see everyone sitting around the monitors and betting on the games. Well, those guys, they set the number. So we've reviewed that, but I want you to understand something more important. Yes, former Charlotte Hornets player Terry Rozier is accused of throwing a game by allegedly faking an injury to leave early so that the co-conspirators could profit from betting on the underperformance. So, like I said, this guy took himself out of the game and said he was hurt, and he wasn't. That's fixing a game. His team lost. These guys are making millions and millions and millions of dollars to play. And this business is no joke. People bet a lot of money on these games. They wager a lot of money on pro basketball, on pro football. I don't know if you know how big a business this is, but in 2024, the legal U.S. sports betting industry generated $13.7 billion in revenue and nearly $150 billion in wagers. So they bet $150 billion in the U.S. alone on all sports, football, basketball, baseball, the whole bit. But still, think about that, $150 billion. This explosive growth has occurred since the Supreme Court struck down the federal sports gambling ban in 2018. Let me explain something that's really important to you. State legalization, as of early 2025, 38 states and Washington, D.C. have legalized some form of sports betting, though online betting with multiple operators is still limited to 24 jurisdictions. New York is the largest market, with Illinois and New Jersey also exceeding $1 billion in annual revenue. So you have 24 places that you can legally bet this, and you're in on this little syndicate that goes, bet the Portland Trailblazers under. Because you know a guy who's one of their leading scorers is going to say his knee hurts and he ain't coming out after the first quarter. So you're all looking at it going, well, when they made that betting line, that 202 points combined, they made it thinking that this player was going to probably score his average 25 points. Now you're taking 25 points out. You don't think that that's going to change it? And of course it is. So this is now connected to some of the New York and Chicago crime families also, because they were involved in these card games where they were traveling to different cities, and big note, Tyronn Lue, Rozier, some of these other guys, and even LeBron James has been named as a suspect. We haven't heard anything about him with the basketball stuff, but let me tell you that it says other individuals have been mentioned in relation to the investigation without being charged. An indictment referenced a bet made based on the inside information about LeBron James's injury status, though he is not accused of any wrongdoing. That's as big as it gets. So, and again, I'm not saying I know anything about what LeBron James's injury status was, but I know that in the argument about him and Jordan over who's the GOAT and all this other stuff, Michael played hurt with the flu. You know, he didn't care. He was never going to come out of a game unless they forced him to. LeBron has more of a glass chin. He lays out when he gets bumped, when anything happens to him. He's an incredible physical specimen, but not exactly what I would put on the all-time toughest player list. But if it can be proven that he intentionally sat out games, again, you got to figure he's good for 20, 25 a game. How does that affect the gambling sports bettors, and how deep this syndicate must be? Remember, we're not doing this between a couple of guys who are betting the money. This is a group, a large group, that is probably spreading the money around different hotels in Vegas, different online sources, where they're, each guy that's in on it is betting at 10, 15 different jurisdictions. Why would you want to gain attention to yourself by betting, $1 million at 10 places? Why would you do that? You bet a couple 100,000 if that's the level you normally play at 25 places. That would be the smart way to do this. I have to say that this is they're quietly letting us know about this. I'm not quite sure what Kash Patel and the FBI is looking to do here. Are there people that are friends that they're going to roll over and tell us bigger names? Are there owners in? Are there referees involved? But it sounds like this has been going on for quite some time. And I think of my friend Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA. And so I pulled this up, in reference to what's going on right now. Adam Silver is not stepping down. He has agreed to a contract extension that will keep him as the NBA commissioner through the end of the decade. There is no immediate discussion about who will succeed him, as his focus remains on current issues like WNBA revenue sharing. Current commissioner Adam Silver is the current NBA commissioner and has a contract extension, which we talked about. Future plans. He is expected to remain in the role, and his agreement for the collective bargaining for the WNBA, despite the recent gambling scandal. So I think that's a cheery way to go. I think that's a great outlook for Adam. I hope that's true, because I know he would have had nothing to do with the gambling scandal. I would be absolutely shocked if he had knowledge. But I have to say that it's his watch. And I have to say that when you're talking about, it's such a big business, and there's hotels and motels and, and television rights and everything else. If you don't have the confidence that you're watching a game and a coach is playing to win, a player is playing to win, that you can question the integrity of the sport, man, talk about like how confidence would just be so rocked if this spreads open and becomes more than we think, than we know right now, which I have a strange suspicion big names are coming. There's going to be other people. They may, slay a couple of them and hang them out to dry just to give the American people and the judicial system a couple of names to sacrificial lambs, if you will. But I was honestly mind blown by this. I was mind blown. How can this happen? How can, in today's records and online and and the names involved, and the way they watch text messages and all the other stuff, and Big Brother's listening. You have your phone in your hand, and you say certain words, and I suddenly get advertisements for the Bahamas. I was talking to my wife about it without my phone even on. I didn't research or look at anything. So if you don't think that you're being monitored in some way and certain catchphrases and words aren't being fed into an algorithm that then turns around and chases you down for your business, it is. Isn't that the same? If you talked about killing people, if you talked about drugs, if you talked about other illegal activities, I'm sure you'd suddenly get red flagged and people will start listening to your phone. That the phone picks up these things and sends out messages to people, the authorities and the whole bit. So how do you pull off, this is what I don't get about this scandal, how do you pull this off in today's world? How do you fix pro basketball games without anyone knowing about it for a long time? They're talking about that this has been going on and this traveling high stakes card game. Again, why would you do this? The convenience of traveling? If you knew you were playing a card game that was for hundreds of thousands, let's say they're big high rolling NBA guys and business guys, and this game goes on in Miami. Okay, so you can't fly to Jersey or to Vegas, because you can go into a hotel and rent a room and they'll give you a dealer and they take a very small fee. If you're that big a high roller, why would you play, and I'm not talking about playing a couple of thousand, but if you're playing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars and you're gambling that kind of money, certainly you can afford just to go set the weekend for a big tournament amongst your 8 friends or 12 friends or something, and set that up and go and have the best food and all the services and everything that you need in Vegas. Why would you play a game like that? Why would you take the risk of having the IRS and the federal government in your business and investigating you? But I mean, you have to be really fucking stupid. Really, you do. You have to be really stupid to allow it to get to that. But we're not talking about that. The card game, I'm not that upset about. But what has gone on in the card game that some of the idiots that were playing cards didn't realize is the mafia was involved in it. And they were fixing the outcome of the game. So there was either people in the game that were being fed cards or whatever, or however it was that they were skimming off the top and they were setting it up. They were scamming, organized crime was scamming players in this game. And you know what? I got to laugh about that, honestly, because I just thought to myself, if someone said to me, I used to play in one of the most famous LA entertainment card games. It was legendary at a gentleman's house who was in the record business, who's a dear friend. I don't want to say his name, but anyone out there that knows this person and knows this game knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it was friendly. It was, like $40, $60 buy-in. Guys would buy a few times. If you got murdered, you lost 150, at most. But some of the biggest names, friendly, funny, comedians, musical guests, actors and different stuff. So I felt honored to be involved. But I didn't care whether I lost or won at that game. I never gamble that kind of money that I could get hurt really badly. I could do a DraftKings $5, $10, $20. I don't have to do it for so much money that it actually could hurt me. If I lost, these $20,000 buy-in, whatever. I don't need to have fun and watch the game. I'll go watch, a team play, and I'll throw my jersey on to watch Tampa Bay. I've been really high on Mayfield lately. I'll go watch that game, but I don't have to have a lot of action on it. I don't need that to spice it up for me. the action on the TV and the action on the field is enough for me. This, I'm going to predict and tell you, is going to get a lot worse. I don't know that the NBA has the juice to keep it quiet. I don't know that keeping it quiet will save Adam Silver. I hope that's not true, because I think he's been around a long time. He's been good for the game, and he's trying to help the girls on the WNBA side come up with something that's fair for all of them in revenue sharing and how we can keep the WNBA going. But the NBA in itself is not doing great. They've taken a bad beat. They don't have, people aren't buying LeBron as the Michael, and he's on his way out anyway. And there hasn't really been someone to step up a couple of guys. You know, they're trying to blow Luka up, and they're trying to blow a few guys up, but it doesn't seem like there's as much of an interest. I'm not as savvy about what's going on in the NBA right now. A lot of spoiled, very successful athletes who I don't think are the greatest example for what I want my kid. When I used to watch pro sports, and I wanted to be like that guy. I'm still friends with Joe Namath. I go to his golf tournament. And you know, my brother Alec and I, when we would come out on the football field at the golf course by the house, we would announce our lineup. So, you know, he would come out and say, now playing quarterback out of the University of Alabama, Joe, Willie, Namath. And he'd run out with a ball in his hand. And we fought over who was going to be Joe Namath, because he was just such a hero and legend to us. I don't fight to be anybody. I wouldn't fight to be that many athletes right now. I've lost a lot of those Roger Staubachs, you know, the Emmett Smiths, different guys that were just, you know, worthy of looking up to, worthy of wanting to fight with your brother over who gets to announce when you're 10 years old running out onto the field that you're that player. To buy that jersey. For me to buy your jersey, or me to have your jersey or wear your jersey, I must admire you greatly, particularly as an adult. I wouldn't lend my name to a lot of guys. And again, I don't want to say, oh, they're all bad. That's not what I mean about that. But I mean the special ones. It seems like it's such a business. And remember something. What we're talking about here that happened is a business. Gambling is a business. Illegal gambling, these guys made into their business. And those who participated, knowing what they were doing was illegal, they decided to throw their hat in an arena that has consequences. So I'm pretty sure that the only way to fix it is two ways. To blanket cover it up and try to minimize it as much as possible. And if the federal government allows that, but it looks like Patel is after them, and he's going to expose a lot of names. And I think you're going to be greatly surprised at some of the people who didn't see it as such a big deal that someone handed them a couple $100,000 in cash in the Cayman Islands and said, hey, thanks for that game last month. And they thought, just for saying my knee hurt, if they can prove that guy's out of the league. That guy's reputation forever will be associated with fixing basketball games, and will be in question then every time that person was hurt. Every time that person had a really, really weird below average point score, where a shot was kind of errant and missed the whole rim for whatever the reason is, they will be under the scrutiny of the American people and sports telecasters, announcers, analysts. Everyone is going to go beat them up. So I think you're going to see that there's going to be a lot of names that come out of this that are bigger than you think. And that may be the second resolution. Either you cover it up or you just blow it open and you give people up, no matter what their reputation is, no matter what they mean. And you start from ground zero with the idea that we're not going to tolerate this in this league. I think that's who Adam Silver is. I think if he becomes aware of the fact that some big names got involved in this and did this, I think he's going to give them up. I think that's his best course of action. That's the most honest course of action, would be to help the FBI investigate it and give up whatever they had to give up. If that kills 25 guys' reputation that everyone thought were squeaky clean, so be it. They chose to do it. They chose to do it. So I want to say that I'm sad. I'm sad about all of it. I am. I remember when there was another basketball guy. I'm not going to mention his name either, but he got involved in a sexual scandal, and I was actually a commentator on Best Damn Sports Show period. And I said, wow, I don't want my kid to wear his number. I don't. Because what he represents now, for him to be involved in this, and I don't want my kid to look up to him. The play on the court is not enough for me. If this is true, what they accused him of being. I was fired very shortly after I made that statement about this guy. The other three guys on the show with me said, no, a man is innocent until proven guilty, and this might be a distraction in the locker room. And I'm not sitting here riding my high horse like I'm so great. I've done things in my life that I'm not proud of. I've done things in my life where I had to get sober and I had to make changes in my life, that I made terrible mistakes as a partner, as a father, as a citizen. I did things that weren't great, and I'm not proud of them, but I cleaned it up. I found the right way, and I also discovered my personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So that really, really helped me. But I'm sad. It seems like so many of these great things that I grew up thinking I was so ambitious to be a part of and everything. And at the end of the day, when money becomes a factor involved, it becomes the primary factor, it ruins it. It just ruins it. It really does. All right, well, listen, please, if you can, I would really be grateful for this. If you could hit subscribe, and you could follow, or you could share the show. These are the ways that we are allowed to come back out and bring a show to you. I promise you, if you could come to my house and see where I shoot right at my house. It's not some big luxurious studio. I take things that are current in the news, and I wonder if I have anything to add to it, if I have some truth to bring to it. I don't hear a lot of people usually saying what I say. I hear some. Recently over Charlie Kirk, I've heard a few people not afraid to say, I guess until I get to 50 million followers or whatever, are they going to feel threatened by what I say? And then we'll see what my consequences are for that. But yeah, man, I'm just a one-man operation trying to knock it down. Me and Hasi, who does the editing, and a couple other secret people that don't want to be mentioned that help me put the show out. But otherwise, this is it. This is my opinion, trying to reach out to you. And I really appreciate your comments. I really appreciate when you write stuff. I try to not just do all the political stuff. I try to bring you, new stuff. Ask me questions about stuff you want me to talk about. Ask me questions about stuff you want me to investigate for you. Those would be all great things. And again, by sharing and subscribing and building the numbers up, it allows me to bring in more stuff to bring you better shows. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Dear Lord, we thank you, Lord, for your guidance and your protection, your loving hand that is stretched out over our lives, brings us to and from the places that we need to be. Lord, we ask you for our continued health. And we ask you, Lord, if these men and women that are involved in this scandal, I try to pray, Lord, for the people that I'm talking about each show. If they've done terrible things, let them be righteous now. And let the league clean itself up so that we don't have any doubt that the games we're watching are fair and true. And I ask you, Lord, for your forgiveness for those people who were involved. Some players that I watched that I admired when I was a kid are involved in this scandal now. And I ask, Lord, for their forgiveness. And I hope that they will speak your word now and live in your light and seek redemption. In your name we pray. Amen, everybody. God bless you. We will talk again in just a couple of days. Ciao.